I'm sorry. I just really wanted to have one of those cool walking into my shop scenes. I've been watching a lot of those shows lately just on because I got the PBS thing. So, anyways, I just wanted to do that. Once again, my name is Jesse. This is Generations Woodcraft. So, about a week ago, I put down on the community page of my YouTube and I asked all of you who are subscribers which of the 4 video choices I was thinking about doing would you prefer. Overwhelmingly, it was optimizing your small workplaces. So that's what we're going to discuss today. There's going to be some tips and tricks in there, but before I roll the intro, I do need to let you know that we are going to have a talk today. The same talk that I had to have with myself, but it's one that needs to be had. Now, this space right here is 20 feet by 10 feet. It's about the size of a single car garage, or it basically is a shed that you can buy from Lowe's or Home Improvement. 3 main keys to designing any workspace, especially a small one because you have limited real estate, is workflow, production, and maximization. Workflow. Let's not take 3 steps to do something that could be done in 1. Production. Am I allowing myself the space that I need to create, to assemble, to glue up, to finish? And then lastly, maximization. Let's take every bit of this real estate and make it useful without being cluttered. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you're going to hear this advice again, probably for the 3rd or 4th time. But when it comes to workflow, remember it's called workflow, not design flow. So the first thing you're going to want to do, and the thing that I did not do, and I'll tell you a story about that here in a second, is before you design anything, you take what you have and whatever space you have, big or small, no matter the lighting, as long as it's not dangerous, and you need to get in there and work. You actually need to start working the wood with what you have. You need to start making, because how do you know exactly what workflow, where you're going to need things to be? Later on, we're going to talk about how I picked the tools that were important to me first, and then I put those in the most prime real estate in my shop. You won't know any of that until you actually work. So number 1 is you need to actually do some work. Let me tell you how I figured that one out. All right, so here's where I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey. When I first started woodworking, and you've heard the story before, I don't want to harp on it, but I got into it after my dad passed away, so I can just build something for him, which I'm on my 3rd iteration of that build. Hopefully that build video will be out Sunday and I'll finally be happy with it. But when I first started, I did it in a basement. It wasn't well lit. I couldn't make a lot of noise because the kids were right upstairs of the basement, and it was just uncomfortable. And I finally decided to take it out to my shed here. I'm going to hopefully have a picture of where I started, and you'll see it right now. And now, here's where I am now. Now, the reason why I mentioned this one as the first one is because I have actually redone my workspace 3 or 4 times before I even cut a board. I didn't even do a cut board because I'm like, no, I need this. I need to find space for this. I need to have a better place for this. I need these tools, but I can't have these tools until I build this, but I can't build this until I have this tool. It was all junk, just because I was afraid to do my first build. Don't be me. Get into the shop, determine what your workflow is before anything, because you don't want to do what I did and design your shop 3 times. My first SketchUp was a design of my shop. My first SketchUp should have been a project. I should have done that project. Then I would have known better how to design my shop, which is why I had to redesign it after I actually started working. Number 2, production. You need to make sure that you have space to assemble and to finish. I did not do that for probably the first 12 months of my shop. It wasn't until recently that I allowed myself to have a walking space in my shop and for me to have a dedicated location and some tarps so I could do some kind of decent finishing. course, that also has something to do with the fact that I never finished my projects because I'm so itching to move on to the next one, which is also a grave mistake. Don't be me. Now, I told you at the beginning of the film that we were going to have a talk. Both of these things that we're about to talk about is going to fall under production. These are, we'll call them life facts that I had to learn and remind myself of to help me get over the paralysis of doing work, designing my shop, and then using my shop as a crutch. Number one, even big shops want to be bigger. Even big shops wish they had different tools. Even big shops want to redesign. I cannot tell you how many of these awesome YouTubers, I mean, awesome. I look at their shops and I'm envious. But how much I see them and they want to move into another shop. And then they talk about how awesome that shop is. And then a couple years from watching the videos, they'll say, I wish we had this. Or more likely what happens is their production changes. And so your shop is always going to change, but you can't let that stop you. Now, you heard me say envy earlier. This is the big one. Don't do what I did. Don't confuse skill envy with tool envy. I'm going to say that again. Don't confuse skill envy with tool envy. I always assumed that the tool made it better. Why can't I do that with my tools? Maybe if I had that tool, maybe if I had that setup. Don't fall into that trap. Anything that you have now, you can make what you see. It may take more time, it may take more patience, but you can do it. So don't let skill envy trick you into thinking it's tool envy, because then you're going to end up with a space that's cluttered. You're going to end up with tools you don't use. It's going to mess up your workflow, and you'll never get to the end of the production because you're always going to be thinking, I could have done that better with something else. So I've built a couple things. I know what kind of tools I have. I know what tools I might want to get, or what tools I've just recently purchased, because those are the tools that I either need to finish the projects I'm going to finish, or that would help me finish my projects in a faster, better manner without going outside of the budget I already set for myself. Remember, don't fall into the tool envy trap. So I've done that. What do I do next? Well, that's when we come into maximization. Now, here's where I'm going to tell you exactly how I designed my shop. It's a little out there. I was a physics and math major, so to me, there's a numerical answer to everything. So let me tell you how I did it, and hopefully this will work for you. So really, the first step for me was just let's put a numerical value on the most important spaces in the shop. So your floor would be 1. As the floor goes, so does the space. Number 2 would be anything in this area here where I could just reach out to it. That includes countertops. That includes the walls. Anywhere I could just bam, grab something, right? Number 3 is anything where I just have to reach up and grab it, right? So we got 1, we got 2, and we got 3. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to label your tools, your tables, and your tops in order of importance. So table saw, that's a 1. Bandsaw, that's a 1. Planer, that is a 1. My sander was a 2. I put them on a flip card. All this stuff here, these are 2s. And they're in the 2 area here. That's a 3. So you put your stuff up accordingly. Of course, most of the time, your power tools, your big footprint things are going to be number 1. They're going to take up the most real estate. But where most people get, I want to say thrown off, and where I got thrown off in designing my shop, is putting 3s in places 2 need to be. And the reason why is because guess what I didn't do? I didn't do enough work to determine which of my tools are going to be 3s and which of my tools are going to be 2s. Now I have it set up to where all my prime real estate, and you could do the same thing by which walls are you going to do more. So this wall here is where I spend most of my time besides the table saw. So all of the tools, my drills, my routers, my squares, everything is right there because I worked enough in here to know that that is going to be where I'm going to spend most of my time. Now, the other place that I spend my time at is right here, and that's where my saws and everything are, and I'll show you that in a minute. So once you determine that, you put things, you match 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, and then the 4s, you fit them in wherever you can. put as many things on wheels as you can. Now, if you watched my videos, especially my dollar store video, you know that I try to save money everywhere I can. One of the places that I tried to save money was, you know what? Once I get it set up in the shop, I'm not going to want to move that big thing. Wrong. If you get a table saw, if you get a bandsaw, if you get a stand-up planer, any of those things, anything that can come with the base, spend the extra money for the base. I promise you, you will never, ever, ever say, I wish I didn't get the base with the wheels on it. That is going to help you so many ways, because as your skills grow and as your shop grow, you're going to have to move things around, because things that were used to be number 2s might become number 1. Things that used to be number 1s might become a number 3. You might get a new number 1 when it comes to how your workflow and what's important to you tool-wise. And if you ever need to move these things, if I ever have to move that table saw, call 911, my back will be out for a month. So get the bases. I promise you, you won't regret it. I also think that the most underused area is the back side of things. So this giant piece of pegboard, if you saw my original video, was just a big 8-foot long by 4 feet. It had everything that it actually has more on it now with everything that's in here than it did when it was just a pegboard. And that's because I took it down and I said, you know what? This is just a flat wall. I'm wasting so much space. Let's add some depth to it. Let's make it where I can open it and use the backside. So this is my flip cart. I got my planer up here. I got my sander down here. I have a big giant drawer with everything that I use for these. There's no dividers in there, so don't judge me on the mess, please. It's got wheels on it, so it fits that rubric where it can pretty much go anywhere. And I'm even using it to store, this right here is my pocket hole jig. So this is a 2. I use it quite a bit, but not as often as a lot of other things. So I can store it on here where it's easily within reach, but it's not taking up more prime real estate. Now, my last 2 tips for you here. First off, don't be too quick to change. I would recommend, after you initially do a couple projects and then you take what you've learned, you take the numerical system, you said this is a 1, this is a 1 when it comes to importance, this is a 2, and you've done that. Next time you make something, don't just change it right after you do the next project. Unless it's something totally egregious, make a couple projects, because each project may be different and what kind of projects you like to do may be different. So lastly, this last tip here is to kind of help you both with saving floor space and saving money. And it's this: when you want to make a change in your shop, whether it be to change a tool out or to add a tool, just know that upsizing isn't always the answer. Sometimes if you have a benchtop planer, you can get a better version of the desktop planer that you have, not waste the real estate value on something that you don't need, save yourself that money, and still get more functionality out of the one that you currently have. So there you go. There's basically the thought process and the reasoning behind how I designed, redesigned again, redesigned a 3rd time, finally actually started doing woodworking, realized I had it all wrong, then finally actually designed, executed, and started working in my wood shop. Up until now, every video I've made, and probably in the future will be the same thing. I mean, besides build videos, which in the process you're going to see, my victories, my failures. That's what this channel is, and I think that's why it resonates with people, and that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be, as someone in the comments said, you just went over to talk to your neighbor and you're talking woodworking, and that makes me happy. Every video up until now has been something that I've struggled with, and it seems like every video I get a couple comments of someone saying, thank you, I needed to hear that. So I hope this video is no different. Yes, your shop layout is important. We got to have good workflow. We got to make sure that we are being productive, and let's maximize our space. But everything goes back to the first one. You got to do the woodworking because you will not know any of those other things. You will not know what's going to give you the best workflow. You're not going to know how you're going to maximize your space yet. You don't know what kind of production you're going to have unless you actually start producing, making, succeeding, and failing in the shop. Once again, my name is Jesse. This is Generations Woodcraft. Now, here comes the end part here if you've made it this far. If you are already a subscriber, awesome. I love you guys very much. You're just making this channel grow so fast. If you're not a subscriber and you'd like to be part of this just fantastic group of people, please make sure that you click the subscribe button. If you are or are not a subscriber, please make sure that you like it. If you do like it, that helps feed the YouTube algorithm. And then lastly, you can go to my Instagram, my Facebook, and I do have a Patreon where there's Patreon only videos if you wish to take advantage of that. Once again, my name is Jesse. This is Generations Woodcraft. And as always, small shop, big ideas. Get out there and make something.